one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you call for the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call: the clerk.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Casagrande.
Here.
DeMoss.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearings. We do have three public hearings items tonight: the Port and Harbor tariff regulations, sale of the airport parcel, and also approving the lease use agreement with Seward Wilderness Collective. So if you're speaking on those three items, you'll wait till the public hearing directly before those come up. Right now, it's just all the items on the rest of the agenda, and those signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, 36 minutes total times, and if you could note for the minutes inside or outside city limits. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in?
Yes, ma'am. The first person signed in is Carol Griswold.
Thank you, Carol.
Carol Griswold, inside city limits. I'm discussing ordinance 22-008, the development requirements that is up for introduction. A change to the zoning code, especially one of this magnitude, should be well advertised and discussed in a public work session, not limited to 3-minute citizen comments. There was no discussion or little at P&Z or in this ordinance of the effect of reducing the required lot size for multifamily developments of 5 or more units in the busy AC and CB districts. There would be even less space for on-site snow removal, screen dumpsters, parking for vehicles, RVs, and boats, landscaping, or a yard for the kids and dogs to play in. Even now, our alleys are being used as a primary access to multifamily dwellings in the AC, causing negative impacts to the neighbors. As off-street parking is not required in the CB district, this pushes vehicles into the public right-of-way in an already congested zone. How does this reduced lot size requirement not degrade the quality of life for the residents and the community? The city recently increased housing density by allowing studio apartments and expanded seasonal employee housing options. The city changed code to allow the Alaska Sea Life Center to house volunteers in RVs in their parking lot in CBD. The city authorized a master plan for extending utilities to undeveloped properties and created a developer reimbursement program. Multifamily residential property on Phoenix is being developed at an accelerated rate. P&Z recently approved a CUP for a fourplex there to further increase density. Other code changes regarding short-term rentals will be discussed at the June 21st P&Z work session. These are more appropriate ways for the city to help be a part of the solution for housing issues. Increasing density in the AC and CB districts is not one of them. Please vote no on this ordinance. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else signed in?
Yes, ma'am. Next signed in is Cheryl Cease.
Hey, Cheryl Cease, inside the city limits. And I know you're supposed to be going into an executive session on the audit, forensic audit. And I know there's been some trouble trying to find all the backtracking stuff on it. But I'm hoping you won't drop it. I'm hoping you'll keep right on looking for it. I think it's very important to the cities of Seward, and it's been a long time, and I think you should find out where it's been going. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else signed in?
Yes, ma'am. Next signed in is Casey Warner.
Hi, Casey Warner, inside city limits. I just wanted to make citizen comment today about how amazing Bailey over at the library has been doing. If anybody's been following that, she has a lot of really great programs coming into the Seward community this summer. And I just wanted council to be aware at the good things that are happening at the library. So thank you for bringing Bailey on, and I look forward to great things at the library.
Thank you, Casey. Is there anyone else signed in?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on all agenda items except for the public hearing items? Hearing and seeing none. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'll kick it off with a couple changes. I was notified that Rob Barnwell will not be able to make it tonight. Can we just move that to the next meeting, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Include the report in the packet again? Please.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Do we need to vote on that?
No.
Okay. And then the other item with the executive session, I was made aware that neither attorney will be in person. I think that, having executive sessions, having at least one attorney in person would be preferable. Is there any objections to also moving that to the June 27th meeting? Do I need to make a motion for that? Okay, any objections? Okay. Are there any other changes, amendments? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote.
Okay. Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda, as amended. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved and approved on tonight's consent agenda. The introduction of ordinance 2022-008, amending Seward City Code 15.10.222, development requirements, table notes, letter E, to allow more density in the auto, commercial, and central business zoning districts. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on June 27, 2022. You have approved Resolution 2022-075, authorizing the city manager to appropriate additional funding in the amount of $300,000 from electric reserves to the contract with Alaska Tree Service, LLC, to complete transmission right-of-way clearing on Nash Road and to remove danger trees along targeted sections of the Seward Highway. And Resolution 2022-076, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract, with Logic Geophysics and Analytics, LLC, for ground penetrating radar services in the amount of $22,291, plus a 10% contingency of $2,229, for a total amount not to exceed $24,520.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is Proclamations and Awards. This is my favorite part of being mayor. And the first, I'll walk over there, but the first folks up are Alan and Tammy Nickel and AJ Turner, please. Sorry about that. Well, the public wants to see your faces too, so you guys have to stand up here also. Well, this is why we live in Seward, is because we have amazing people doing amazing things. So, whereas on May 30th, 2022, while driving towards Seward, off-duty Seward Police Chief Alan Nickel, Human Resource Manager Tammy Nickel, and electric operator and Seward volunteer firefighter AJ Turner witnessed a horrific motor vehicle accident near mile 7 of the Seward Highway. Whereas all parties immediately responded to assist in providing help and assessing the scene for hazards and life-threatening injuries. Tammy Nickel called 911 and stayed on the phone with dispatch to relay vital ongoing situational changes occurring at this dynamic emergency scene. Whereas Chief Nickel and AJ immediately performed a rapid assessment of all victims involved in the crash and determined there were 2 critically injured patients needing rapid intervention. And whereas smoke and flames began quickly filling the vehicle and endangering the lives of trapped victims, and whereas Chief Nickel, AJ, and other bystanders sprung into immediate action and selflessly, heroically removed the severely injured victims from the burning vehicle, just moments before the vehicle was consumed by fire. Without the quick thinking and reaction of these courageous bystanders, Both of the survivors would have inevitably perished on scene, whereas the community and these victims are, without a doubt, safer for having others before self citizens living among us. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby recognize the heroic actions of Police Chief Alan Nickel, Tammy Nickel, and Asia Turner, and do hereby commend their selfless acts that helped save lives during this horrific motor vehicle accident. Ask everyone to stand while we applaud these guys.
I just wanted to also mention, less than a week or right at a week later, coincidence or just fate that this man lives on our planet. AJ was driving, was closer up towards Anchorage, and the exact same scenario happened again. Another burning vehicle with a patient inside that needed extra patience. So he sustained a little bit of an injury to his hand, but you know, angels are where they are, right? So we're glad to have these people.
Thank you guys so much.
For all of you.
Oh, good. Oh, wonderful.
If you guys have seen the paper, there's a gentleman listed in there named Scott Beach, and he really deserves a lot of credit with this as well. I stood right behind him as he worked on the person that he and I ended up getting out of the car kind of together. But it really cannot be understated the amount of work that he did. This poor guy's leg was broken and shoved up under a seat, and he had to get that leg out. And that's the type of thing that you just don't experience very often. And so, I mean, he did a heck of a job. So, very, very instrumental in saving that guy's life.
Well, let's give a round of applause for him also. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think he's on his way. He wasn't aware either.
Okay, sorry. All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you for all you do. All right, wrestlers, get up here with your coaches. Okay, Aiden, you can hold yours while we're talking. Let's see where Hunter is. Here's Hunter's. Ryan Mulally. You guys don't hide behind. Coaches are important too. Come on now. Nate. All right. So so these kids are very cool. So you guys ready for this? So the Seward High School Seahawk Wrestling Program had a fantastic showing at the Alaska State Wrestling Tournament in December. Whereas wrestling team member Aiden Schilling, which this isn't on the proclamation, but his dad was a state winner also, so this kid is a legacy, came away victorious as the Alaska State Champion. Plus Hunter Kurtz brought home a bronze medal, and an additional 5 Seahawk wrestlers were in the state qualifying team. Whereas weighing in at 103 pounds, I should say that like, weighing in at 103 pounds, freshman Aiden Schilling is the first Alaska State champion for Seward since 2008. And weighing in at 112 pounds, freshman Hunter Kurtz secured a bronze medal. And whereas also on the state qualifying team were John Van Buskirk, Tyler Lance, Jack Gardner, Faison Lawrence, and Porter Rockwell. And whereas the dedicated coaching staff of Brian Mulally and Nate Smith went above and beyond to encourage, motivate, and bring out the best in Seward wrestling team. Whereas the Seward High School and the City of Seward are very proud of the Seahawk wrestling team for their great accomplishments. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby congratulate the Seward Seahawk wrestling team and coaches and commend them for their exceptional showing at the Alaska State Wrestling Tournament. Great job, you guys. Do you want to take your your coaches down, show us a few wrestling. What about you, coaches? Do you have anything?
I'll play dirty then. I do have something more to say on that. So, we just got done with USA Wrestling, and Aiden is the second person that has triple crowned in Seward since we ran the program. So that's Greco, full stop, and freestyle. And then he beat a long-time nemesis since, what, 8 years old, 9 years old? Haven't beat. We finally got him, and made it work. He's looking at 2 state champs in freestyle in the entire deal. One at 113, and the other 106. So
Great job, you guys.
it's only onward and upward.
Good job, you guys. You can make sure that's Thank you, guys. Thanks, families.
I'll drive him home.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the city manager's report, and you'll find that starting on page 6, and I'll turn it over to administration.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council and public. City Manager is not able to join us. Thoughts and prayers for her as she's hoping to come back into action. She wanted to express her apologies for not being here this evening. I don't have a lot beyond what's in the packet, other than I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody that's been involved in the landslide cleanup effort. We're not done. The road's open, but we are not done. We're going to be working with FEMA and the state just on further actions, continuing to gather data and evaluate, and you guys will be all apprised of further action that we need to take to continue to find ways to make that road better. I just want to shout out also to Metco and Advanced Blasting as well. We were extremely fortunate, as most people know, that we had 2 Hitachi 870 excavators here in town. If not for Metco, especially jumping in literally like just right after the slide started, we might still have the road closed. So I just can't express that enough, how appreciative we are and just the patience of our community in the face of that. It was really encouraging to see everybody really pull together. So I just wanted to say that, and that's all I have to add, other than Dustin, if you could, he's going to expound on the supplemental letter from Green Forensic Accounting. I don't know about you guys, but I read that report about 5 times, and I was still like, what does that say? So Dustin's been hard at work, just doing some follow-up, and I'm going to turn it over to him and ask him to kind of...
Order right now.
Can we just point of order? So the additional gentleman with that proclamation has arrived, so can we just, before we start that, we'll just let him come in. Thank you. Well, so I don't know if you heard, you had your praises expounded by our police chief. So we just wanted to make sure to have the public see Mr. Beach, Scott Beach, and just give you our total gratitude for your heroic efforts that evening. We're so thankful, and it's well deserved.
I always love the town of Seward and the way they show support to its citizens. Thank you. And I got a message from Eric, the person that I pulled from the wreck. Both him and his wife are doing a lot better. His wife is released from the hospital. Eric's still in the hospital till mid-August. He had a broken pelvis, a broken leg, a broken knee, a broken nose, and a broken finger, but he expressed his gratitude, and especially for the Bear Creek Volunteer Fire Department and for everybody else that was there at the scene. He was very appreciative, and you know, he knows that his life was saved that day, just in a matter of minutes, between his wife that Ace has saved and Eric, the one that I pulled out. But I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you, and I'm glad Eric and his wife are both still alive.
Yeah. sorry for that interruption. That's why we're a community, so thanks for letting me take a break. So, turn it back over to you, Dustin.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give the Cliff Notes version of the report here. So I've been working with Harris Support and also the audit firm to try to furnish what information we can. In working with Harris, once we determined this section of time was missing out of the log data, worked with Harris to try to determine if the data was purged, would it have been exported and where would it have been saved. And so we did determine that data is saved locally to the machine, so we went through all of the systems that we had, trying to find where those exports might have been. We were unable to find those. So then the auditors requested an export of the data, the log data, immediately following the missing time period. We were able to export that. We gave them, I believe, April of 2019 through the end of June 2021. We gave them that data so that they could go through that and see if they could see what they could find there. Originally, Harris Support, it's noted here in the letter. Harris Support originally told us they believed the act of purging data would be logged in that log file. So the auditors were searching through there trying to find evidence of that. And then earlier this month, Harris Support got back to us and said that, in fact, that act is not logged. So we're not able to determine if that was ran or when. So we've gone through all of our systems, and unfortunately, as it's noted in here, most of the computers have been replaced since March of 2019. We were able to find a few of the systems that hadn't been surplus or recycled yet. We went through those as well, and we were not able to find them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Maybe at next meeting.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the city manager's report? I have a question. I know that this is the summer of, continuing to find labor. How is it going with the campgrounds? How does that look like?
So as you can see in the CMR, we've got 12 open positions in Parks and Rec currently. We hope that the Parks and Rec director position, the individual will be in that position in a couple weeks. We've made a job offer to the gardener position, and we have just as of today, but we haven't heard back yet on that offer. We're hoping that that position will be filled because we know that that's been an item of concern. On the other positions, it's been tough. I mean, just like a lot of other entities in our community, but we're taking action to authorize overtime. Sitting right beside me is an individual who doesn't work in the Parks and Rec department, but pulls overtime to clean bathrooms, change garbages, etc. So we're doing everything we can to have folks pitch in. Today I met with Allie, our operations supervisor, and I'm taking some things off of her plate so that she can focus more on operations. So we're really pulling together as a team and doing everything we can. Tammy's been doing an awesome job, coming up with some creative recruitment strategies, trying to get, interviews with as many people as possible, and again, just trying to find creative solutions. We definitely know that we're very, very busy. We're going to have an unprecedented level of visitors in the campgrounds, and just doing everything we can to provide those folks a high-quality experience. I guess the only other thing I would add is, I know you folks received a letter from an Anchorage resident who visited Seward recently, and there's definitely some valid concerns in there. As a follow-up to the letter, one of the things that was identified was the use of our pump out station was less than their expectation, and we kind of looked at maybe we need to adjust the grade of where folks drive in so that the slope is better. So I mean, there are going to be some things that we need to take a look at our infrastructure down the road and try and find ways to make the user experience better and better, and that's definitely something that we'll continue to strive towards.
And then just during the budget process, I wonder if we can relook at maybe having campground hosts again. I know that the system's utilized at the state level. and is successful.
So we've actually not stopped doing the campground host position. Historically, we've had at least 3 or 4 folks that returned every single year, and since COVID, those folks just haven't come back.
Oh, because I actually talked to a host that was told that it was no longer in place, so.
If you could pass along their information, because we just had a conversation today with an applicant from on the other side of the peninsula, and they get a stipend, but it's basically a non-paid position, and they do need to agree to have available hours. And we don't expect them to be available 24 hours a day, but it's definitely something we're still looking for. We've got a couple folks that are kind of historical participants in the program, and the price of fuel has just made it not feasible for them to come up from the lower 48 this summer, but we're definitely open to those folks coming, so.
Good to hear. While I was monopolizing that, are there any other questions for the? Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to bring up the gardening position. I'm happy to hear that there's someone that has had the job offered to them, but I feel like we're already in the middle of June, so even if they accept the job and by the time people have their flowers planted, is there a plan maybe for that to happen before the person, can someone else step in? It's just like a one-person show typically. I'm just wondering if maybe there's something we could do more immediately since it's already here, the time of the year. And then I wanted to ask about, the pothole. Well, first I wanted to say that the street painting looks really good from Public Works. I've been noticing they've been doing a lot of that. But the potholes in the alleyway are really bad, and I know we spoke about this today, and you've already taken action, but just for the public to understand that it will be taken care of, and maybe something more long-term planning can kind of be a little bit more preventative, so we don't have them so bad.
So short-term, Public Works will be out tomorrow to work on the downtown area especially. We know drainage in that area is working against us. So in the short term, Public Works will get down there and fill potholes and, temporarily make it better. But we know that just the drainage, the way it works in downtown Seward makes it a struggle. And to be frank, we're going to need to come up with something long-term and more comprehensive. So Doug is out on vacation this week, but when he gets back, I'll sit down with him and Mike Kinney, and we'll start the conversations about bringing forth some solutions to fixing the systematic problem, because we can fill potholes and, we get a good rain and people drive on it, it's going to come back. So we need to think about what we're going to do, and I can't answer that question tonight, but we'll bring back some suggestions.
Okay. Thank you. I just had people saying something to me about it, so I wanted to make sure to touch on it. And then another question that I'm getting from constituents is with the mistakes on the utility billing that have been brought up. I know that we are and have already rectified a lot of the bills that were overcharged, a lot of the customers that were overcharged. People are wondering how we're going to be dealing with people that were undercharged. And I know that you probably don't have that answer, but I know people are asking, so.
So I'll have Rob touch on some of the work that we uncovered during our internal audit, but I can tell you from the green forensic audit, they gave us a checklist, and finance went through that and addressed each of those items. I'll ask Rob to speak on the other items.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. For the customers that are moving, Councilmember DeMoss, from the large general to the small general, we were hoping to actually communicate with them last month and implement this month. But my schedule pushed that out. So now we're looking at communicating to them over the next week or two and then implement that in the July bill.
Okay.
Okay.
And so will that be all of the accounts that were?
Well, we have the 11 that are moving from small to large. And I met or spoke with them directly myself. After having those conversations, that was in late April, early May. After having those conversations, I felt like it was best to allow them the opportunity to transition. Some of them are really close to the threshold, and with the more time, they may be able to get underneath that threshold. And then others, it's also the fact that they're seeing a pretty significant impact on their bill. So to give them an opportunity to prepare, because certainly they didn't budget for it going into this year. So we're going to implement that in September.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rob. Any other questions specific to the manager's report? And again, for the public, if you have any questions about what's going on in the city, you should definitely go to the clerk's office. Actually, I think the current council packet will be right on the front page. You hit that button, you can look at the council packet, read through that manager's report. There's a wealth of information. Next on the agenda is city attorney's report. Were we gonna have Attorney Brooks just on the phone?
It is, I'm calling actually City
Sam.
Attorney Sam Seward.
Okay, and that report starts on page 29.
Hi Sam, it's Brenda. You're with Counsel for your report.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm not able to be there. You can probably tell from my voice I'm not feeling well. Probably be in public right now. So our report, as usual, is fairly skeletal. Try to speak to the things that we all work on things that go in here. But the things that I worked on, I think, in terms of what probably took the most time, it was assisting with the SPEA collective bargaining. And we did that from Anchorage, as opposed to coming down in person this time, just to try that. I believe that was effective and helped get it done. The other thing that I think I'd like to just touch on briefly is there was some work on fire code compliance, as well as working with planning a little bit on, mostly just advising no particular issues, but on the short-term rental code. And just highlight those two because I think I really like code compliance issues, and whether that's enforcing it by lawsuits or citations or negotiation, and that's just one of the main behind-the-scenes things that goes on that makes a big difference, I think. So, that's very brief, and if anybody has any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the city attorney? Great, thank you for your time this evening, sir. Feel better.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our first public hearing item, resolutions requiring public hearing. Resolution 2022-074, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-074 is amending the Port and Harbor Tariff Regulations to increase the waitlist fee, labor and personnel charges, boat tow fees, travel lift fees, and wharf demurrage rates effective January 1st, 2023.
And I'll need a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-074.
I'll second.
And then I'll turn it over to administration.
And I'm going to turn it over to the harbor master.
Yeah, thank you, Counsel. So working with PACAT is one of the priorities, is working on the harbor tariff. So the mortgage fees and everything are already on the annual, we raise them annually. But some of the stuff hasn't been touched since 2007. So that's what we're looking at. We came up with an inflation rate from back then, is at 26.85%. We recommended a certain amount. They brought it down a little bit and to the numbers that you have now, which is the CPI, which we use in the 5-year average. And went back and looked at Cordova, Homer, Valdez for one item, and then Port Townsend for the 330 ton, because it's a similar machine. And we're below Port Townsend on the 330 ton. We're below Homer, the private company. We're below theirs for the 50 ton. So, in the waitlist fees, we are cheaper than Valdez, be a little higher than Homer, and of course Cordova is pretty low.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to questions, we'll open it up for public hearing. So I'll open it up for public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in?
Yes, ma'am. The first person signed in is Steve Lemmy.
This is in regards to composting?
Oh, no, sorry, Harbor.
Tariff, okay.
Okay.
So the next person signed in is Susie Urbach.
I'm guessing, yeah.
Okay, so I do not have anyone signed in.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to the harbor tariff? Come on, no one wants to hear from Okay, so hearing and seeing none, I'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Is there questions from the council? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the equipment fees were deliberated thoroughly at PACCAB, but since that time, we have had, an exponential raise in the cost of fuel, which impacts your budget. Are you still happy with the amounts recommended for the, specific to the equipment usage?
I'm happy with that amount. I just think if we just justify and hope for the fuel comes down, it might take something a little bit more than what's going on right now, but I think we just stay where we're at. And if we have to do a budget adjustment midterm, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one more question. As we, again, move into the budget cycle, like we need to start thinking about these things. Would these fees be something that should be tied to the CPI like other fees are in your tariff? Or is this something that makes sense to have static and then review maybe annually or biannually?
So that was a question brought up by PACCAB, and there was discussion on both sides of it. I think because the waitlist fee, if we just stay kind of, maybe revisit it again through PACCAB's, calendar, maybe every 5 years you take a look and see where we're at with the comparable to the other harbors. Some of these items, I think, if you look at the other harbors, it pretty much stays the same. I know that Valdez is going to be raising their weights a lot here shortly. So for what we got right here, I think we should just revisit it in maybe 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the harbor master? Did you have a question?
No questions.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-074, Casagrande,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Olsenga,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next resolution requiring a public hearing is Resolution 2022-031. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-031 is authorizing the sale of parcel number 1450249 containing 25.395 acres to the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for the improvement project number C548570000 in improving the Seward Airport for the fair market value that has been determined to be $2,000. This resolution had public hearings and then was postponed on March 14th, March 29th, April 25th, 2022, is coming back tonight for a fourth public hearing and approval.
And we do not need a motion and a second because this has already been motioned and seconded.
That is correct. Your motion is on the floor.
Thank you. But I will turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the city manager provided some comments to city council regarding this item. Her recommendation at this time is to fail this resolution. It's not in our opinion that $2,000 is a fair price for this parcel, and I guess I'll just speak to the outcry of public opinion regarding this, that I don't think our citizens feel like this is an equitable trade with the state of Alaska. The city manager and I had an opportunity to meet with DOT recently regarding this, and we expressed to them perhaps an option of trading this parcel for state shop. Perhaps that would be more equitable and benefit the community in a better way. That could be converted to a higher and better use than it is currently. I was met with lukewarm reception, but we definitely are one of the, I believe, one of 3 coastal communities in Alaska that owns tidelands of this nature, and for $2,000, why get rid of it?
Thank you. Before we go to questions, we'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in to speak on this topic?
Yes, ma'am. The first person signed in is Shana Pataki.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today about this resolution. My name is Shana Patakia. I'm a Seward resident and I live within city limits. Prior to this meeting, I provided to the council, sorry it was on short notice, but you received it today, an alternative proposal for your consideration in regards to the request by DOT for the purchase of that lot for $2,000. The proposed alternative that I provided to the council is for a land exchange and proposed conservation easement within the same airport area. Within my proposal, I mentioned 4 key things: the land exchange, a potential conservation easement, the benefits to the city of Seward, and the benefits to the community. I don't know if it's worth giving an overview for people who are outside of this meeting, so I'll try and read quick and watch my time. The Department of Transportation, in an effort to extend the short runway located at the Seward Airport in Seward, Alaska, has proposed a purchase of tidal lands from the city of Seward. This is due to issues cited both with weather conditions, which impact the use and maintenance due to river dynamics adjacent to the long runway, also located at the same facility. And you can let me know if there's things that I don't know about the project. DOT offered $2,000 for that 25-acre parcel. In order to accomplish this work, the extension of the short runway would entail, as I understand it, filling part of the wetlands, including the wetland ponds, and potentially armoring the area and then the tidelands. There's been a lot of consideration, a lot of thoughts, and I've been listening to people, and I did a lot of homework before bringing this alternative. So I really wanted to think about what works best for as many people or everyone as possible. A land exchange would be a great option for some of the adjacent land that DOT is considering not maintenancing anymore. So that would be the lands in association with the long runway. Due to challenges with the use and maintenance of the long runway, DOT has indicated that it will forego attempts to further invest in or use the long runway, which impacts because of the related river. A land exchange to the city, if decided, would be a much better alternative to the city as well as the community as a whole. This includes economic benefits, preservation of vital wetland services and habitats, and supports community resilience and wellness. Wetlands are a major protector of coastal communities. They help with flooding, water quality, habitat. There's a lot of wildlife that utilize that area. Conservation easement is commonly used when trying to establish an area for mitigation to impacts due to development. And these easements can have varied use and then again protect water, wildlife, habitat protection, and are an asset and generally will increase in value, especially for that area for the city. So something to consider. Within my proposal, I listed a number of benefits. I'll try and wrap up here so we can share those. If people have questions, I'm happy to talk about them. And then I also listed benefits to the community, but I'll just jump right to the summary. If the future of the Seward Airport includes landscape modifications that impact the ecosystem function and community impacts, it is in the city and the community's best interest to consider a land exchange that confers benefits which mitigate airport development, provide for comparable high-quality land habitat in exchange, and supports natural buffers between local residents and the airport. My hope is that I've presented something that the council can support. I would ask you not to vote on the selling of the parcel for tonight, or if, in order to consider a better option, perhaps a land exchange and a conservation easement. And thank you so much for your time and consideration. Or if you do fail the motion, then to look at other options going forward. I also wanted to say, before you complain, volunteer, and I'm volunteering, so if you need additional support in resources, and I provided them at the back of my packet, I'm happy to assist. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is anyone else signed in?
Yes, next signed in is Carol Griswold.
Carol Griswold, Inside City Limits. Dear Council and Administration, that was very good news from the city manager to fail this resolution. I wish I'd known about that before I prepared my extensive comments. However, I'd like to share them with the public. I appreciate the numerous corrections that were made to Resolution 2022-031, starting on page 193, noted as Resolution 2022-XXX. However, I found it difficult to piece together the total resolution as bits and bobs were scattered all over and page numbers were written over or covered by text, making this lengthy document hard to reference. Will the new resolution packet include the appraisal and title and any other omitted documents from the original? It would be helpful to see a complete sequential packet, not this chopped up version. The new maps on page 200 to 206 do not correlate with the Kenai Peninsula parcel viewer for the Alaska Railroad Corporation land to the west. There's no parcel C, B, or lot 3 or 9. Is the Seward Highway really lot 4? The sale of public land is a serious decision that should be well documented with accurate descriptions and maps. The interesting and informative historic 1967 perpetual easement to airspace on pages 186 to 191 references the easement in the tideland south of Long Runway 1331. The document states said perpetual easement to be determinable only upon abandonment of the northwest-southeast runway by the grantee, its successors, or assigns. A condition should be added that this perpetual easement to airspace will be rededicated to the public when runway 1331 is abandoned. Will this sale trigger a subdivision plat and on-the-ground survey with stakes, or should this also be a condition for the sale? The $2,000 payment is a pittance based on 0 sales in the past 10 years and a 10-year comparison report that ended in 2020. The sales comparables used on page 124 range in dates from 6 to 19 years old. The 2020% list price change on page 122 was a negative 30.73%. Since the appraisal's effective date of value on June 16, 2021, local property values have soared, flipping that negative list price change to positive. The appraiser noted on page 102 and 196 that market value is best measured in terms of the adjacent upland and that tideland values are expressed as a fraction of the upland values. In April, Council asked for a revised appraisal based on the recent sale of Parcel 4, an upland property adjacent to Parcel 5. This truly valid recent comparable was not included and should be required. Bruce Jaffa gave me permission to add, get a better deal or don't sell it. Please consider postponing this resolution or denying it to allow time for further corrections, to compile a complete sequential packet for clarity, and to obtain a revised appraisal based on the recent adjacent upland sale. The sale of this valued and valuable public land deserves a clean and clear procedure. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is anyone else signed in?
Well, Steve Lemmy was, but I just want to verify.
What's that?
Do you wish to speak on this?
No.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't have anyone.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the public hearing for the airport?
Everything but everything.
Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back for discussion. Are there questions for administration? I guess I want to reiterate for the minutes to communicate back to the state of Alaska that, thank them for answering our questions, but it does need to be done in a different format. Like, it was very confusing. I would like to see an updated appraisal. So I think they just need to do some legwork and come back to us if we need a committee of the whole meeting or something. We're happy to talk to the state. We're leaving that door open. But the information needs to be packaged to us, and they need to go back and do a little bit more work on their own. that was not a question, but if you could share that
I
with
just
them.
want to reiterate, the city administration expressed the desire for the need for an updated appraisal, and the response was that the city is more than welcome to do another appraisal, but the state will not be, so.
Okay.
We've provided that information to them.
I think if they'd like to come down, we can set up a meeting with them. They might have a different opinion if we're sitting in a meeting and talking about how we can work together. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
So I called and spoke with Carico Nichols today with DOT. I had lots of questions, one of which was, if we sell the land, how long before they start construction? And the first answer was 2023 to 2024. And then called back and said, well, actually, we're still in current negotiations with both the railroad and some private property owners that are in the area. And that even if we were to sell this property, agree to sell it today, doesn't mean anything as far as the runway goes, because they still have other negotiations. And I said, is that related to price? And she said, yes. So that was a big holdup, in my opinion. Then, if they were able to get our property, or the city property, sorry, and the agreements on the other properties, then it goes out to have the project certified before it ever goes to bid. So if we sell the property to them and agree to sell it to them now, it could still be who knows how long, or it could never happen if the other property owners don't agree. So I think that we should fail this at this time until they have a better plan.
Any further discussion? I also want to note for the record, we do need our airport repaired. So this in no way signals that we don't think we need help with our airport and the work that's been done to, we need our runways fixed. So and this in no way comments on that, in my opinion, unless there's any other objections to that. Madam Clerk, can you call for a vote, please?
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-031. Demas?
No.
Calhoun?
No.
McClure?
No.
Olsenda?
No.
Wells?
No.
Casagranda?
No.
Mayor Terry?
No.
That resolution has failed.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-069. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-069 is approving the lease for the land use agreement for parcel number 144-03082 located at 2617 Maple Street with Seward Wilderness Collective in support of pilot project Seward Compost, and authorizing the city manager to reduce lease payment requirements for the Seward Wilderness Collective Seward Compost. This resolution had a public hearing and was postponed from May 23rd, and is coming back tonight for a second public hearing and approval.
Great, and again, this resolution is also on the table and has a motion and a second. So I'll turn it over to administration.
Not much to add to this one, just as a follow-up on pages 225 through 230, I want to note that the term was updated to reflect a 2-year term, and then initial verbiage regarding that the lease may be renewed at the sole option of the city for an additional 5 years, and that was in response to discussion when this item first came up. Item number 18 had a housekeeping change. Item number 22 was moved to a different location in the lease agreement. Same with item 36, and item 37, as you can see, just has additional verbiage kind of describing the operation itself.
Great,
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in to speak on this item?
Yes, ma'am. The first person is Sarah Tugas.
Should we let Steve Lemmy go first? Hi, how's it going? For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sarah Tugas. I live in Forest Acres. I have 3 children. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. and I'm here to voice the potential dangers of putting this compost facility within our neighborhood. A lot of our neighborhood is here tonight, along with just like a fraction of the children that are in our neighborhood. There's a ton of kids, like bunches of kids. If you go to Forest Acres, everybody's riding their bikes all the time out there. So just some examples of wildlife that I have had at my home in Forest Acres, and it's constant. It's all the time. It's not just once or two things. I've had 5 bears in my yard in one day. A brown sow with 1 cub, and then a black sow with 2 cubs. That day I told my husband we're putting up a fence. That's it. Oftentimes the coyotes wake me up at night howling, and my husband saw a coyote on the dump road just 2 days ago. And I once saw a wolf at the rec camp, the former rec camp there. So that's pretty rare to see a wolf in that area. In the last council meeting, you guys had somebody come and say that they had containers out at Bear Lake, and the bears tried to break into them, have never gotten into them, but the bears still try, and they're still an attractant for the bears. I have spoken with Fish and Game. They agree that a compost site would also be an attractant for bears, even if the container is bear-proof, it still omits a smell. I'm also opposed to the 5-gallon bucket concept. In the beginning, I used to work in refuse in Anchorage. We did residential, commercial, and then we also did, like Stuckagon Heights and stuff that were more rural hillside areas. And this is what I think they should do, the Seward Wildlife Collective should do, if it was me running my business. I would personally contact Alaska Waste and see if they aren't already going to implement a project like this, because they are already doing it in Wasilla and Anchorage. So to me, Kenai Peninsula Borough might be the next step, and they're our local trash provider. I found an alternate location for them. UAF has 110 acres adjoining the dump. If this project takes off for them, they will need more than what they have for land there, depending how commercial this gets. Jennifer Elkhart is the contact there. I've spoken with her, and she's very open to helping them obtain this site. I think they should start with just doing commercial services and not doing residential services. If they do commercial services, they stick with the restaurants, the cruise ships, possibly the prison. I think they could also implement an educational program in the school with the children. In the meantime, that's where they apply for a grant for bear-proof containers for people's homes. And in that sense, it would help with the trash problem and bear problem we already have, since not everybody has a bear-proof container. And I bet they could get a grant on getting those bear-proof containers for the curbside recycling. And last but not least, I possibly think they could put a residential drop at the Mariners Memorial. That's as far away from wildlife as you could get. People just bring their stuff there and they do a pickup there. They have those commercial dumpsters and commercial recycling out there. So the city itself should make them probably do a wildlife mitigation plan if this does go into effect. And then as time goes on, they have to be aware that, if they have equipment and whatnot, they need to look into OSHA standards as well. I think this is a great project. I think it's a helpful project. My mom is 73 years old. She still lives in Alaska, and in the dead of winter, she will snow machine out her compost stuff from our cabin in Petersville and put it in her pile at home in Anchorage. So she's done it for lifelong. It's nothing new to us. And that's all that I got. I would say thank you for your time. My oldest daughter wanted to be here tonight, but she couldn't be. She broke her leg. She fell from a rope swing that I built her. On Friday, and I told her she could speak tonight, but she's bedridden, and she's currently probably babysitting my dad, who's babysitting her. So, if you know my dad, he's probably asleep. But she wants me to tell you guys that she wishes this was in Antarctica, as far away from her house as possible. She just doesn't know where Antarctica actually is, and that it's frozen. So, that's all I got for tonight. So, thank you guys for your consideration, and I oppose this location, the 5-gallon bucket concept, but not the location. Or the location, the 5-gallon bucket concept, but not the project. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next signed in?
Next signed in is Carrie Lenardi.
I'm Carrie Lenardi. I live in city limits. I strongly oppose the compost site at 2617 Maple Street. I live at 2604 Maple Street with my 2 elementary school age daughters. I think a neighborhood filled with children is a dangerous and irresponsible location for a compost site. As it is, the dump is nearby and attracts bears and other wildlife to our neighborhood. Just last Friday, I saw a neighbor's trash can overturned and trash strewn around their yard, presumably from a bear. I understand the risk of living in Alaska and that we are surrounded by potentially dangerous wildlife. Because of this, my daughters and I take necessary precautions when walking, biking, or playing in and around our neighborhood. Not to mention that we keep our trash protected and don't leave anything outside that could attract more wildlife. Adding a compost site 407 feet from my home is just going to attract more bears and other wildlife even closer. It will also make it so that I don't feel comfortable letting my children play in our yard alone. I don't feel like the plans for the compost site have been transparent, and the only reason I even learned about the plans was because a concerned neighbor reached out to me knowing how close my home is and that I have 2 young children. Sorry, I lost my spot. Excuse me. Since learning of the plans, I have spoken with many neighbors, and none of us felt as though the Seward Wilderness Collective were forthright in their planning of this project so close to our homes. No one reached out with the idea or even asked for suggestions, and Sarah has great suggestions. It feels as though it's being slid in under the radar with no public input. If it's going to be for public use, I have many concerns. Who's going to educate the public on proper composting? Who's going to monitor that it's being used properly? Is it going to be completely contained? It worries me that because of others' irresponsible actions, my daughters and my safety will be jeopardized. Already, as we know, the road to the dump is littered with people's trash. I fear that the same thing will happen, but now there are homes in the immediate vicinity who will suffer the consequences. I'm not opposed to composting. I think it's a great idea. I have many friends who successfully compost at their own homes. I have a problem with a large-scale public-use compost site being developed so close to my home and in a neighborhood with dozens of young children and the draw of wildlife to that area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next signed in?
Next signed in is Carol Griswold.
Hello again. I've been very busy this weekend. Carol Griswold, Inside City Limits. I, too, am very concerned about the Seward compost project as stated in the packet. The location is far from my home, but the 5-gallon buckets with a lid of edibles set out by residents, restaurants, and businesses for the weekly pickup will attract bears and other wildlife like a trap line. The wind and ravens will tip the contents if the bears and coyotes don't. Bear-proof containers should be required. As these are prohibitively expensive, this becomes a big flaw in their operation plan. The description details the use of at least one in-vessel composting cube, about 48 inches by 40 inches by 45 inches. At least one. My personal cold composting pile is about the same size. How many will really be needed to serve the town and significantly lessen the impact of methane on our community and on a global scale? The undefined long-term project uses low tunnels to accommodate significantly larger volumes of compost. Will the in-vessel and low tunnels be bear-proof and odor-free? Even with an electric fence, they will attract bears and other wildlife. The location is not conveniently located near the transfer station. It is immediately adjacent to and part of the Forest Acres neighborhood. It should be part of or next to the transfer station. It is the borough's best interest to separate yard clippings and other compostable materials from the landfill. 10 years is an unnecessarily long time for a pilot project to demonstrate the viability of community-wide composting with an option to extend for another 10-year term and month-to-month thereafter. Even the proposed revised lease for 2 years with an additional option of another 5 years, then month-to-month, is too long to tie up valuable city land. If the Seward compost project fails in a year, they should appeal for another year or fold. Not only is Seward Compost asking for 0.84 acres of free city land for 7 to 20 years or more, but they are charging city residents to pick up their organic waste and charging again for the sale of the compost. Did Seward Compost do a market survey to see how many Seward residents, restaurants, and businesses will pay to participate in the curbside service or purchase of compost? What happens in the winter when the buckets of goodies will be frozen? Their business plan, based on an unknown monthly subscriptions and unknown sales of compost, is not realistic. It is doubtful that this project will be a benefit to the entire Seward community. The lease only allows secure, airtight, in-vessel systems to mitigate wildlife interactions and ensure public safety. But compost requires air to work, otherwise it turns to anaerobic sludge. This is unrealistic. The lease does not include use of low tunnels, which is in conflict with their long-term plan. The lease does not require electric fencing or containment of odors to lessen the attraction of bears and other wildlife. The lease refers to this facility as a food bank, which it is not. The lease does not address the use of any other structures which might be required to store equipment and the van. Are such structures allowed? This is a great pilot project, but at the wrong location. Seward Compost should instead partner with Alaska Waste and the borough to set up a composting program at or near the transfer facility, far from kids, pets, and neighbors, where interested residents, restaurants, and businesses can deliver their edibles and grass clippings for free. Sell the finished compost to support the program, but do not lease this valuable public property in the Forest Acres neighborhood for $1 for any length of time. It is not in the public's best interest. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is anyone else signed in?
Yes, ma'am. We have several others. The next is Trent Gould.
Hi, Trent Gould, Inside City Limits. I'm here representing the Seward Wilderness Collective. Thank you for your time, consideration. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Last time we were here, council asked two things of us: to contact the borough and to amend the lease. I know Claire sent out an email with an update about the borough, who is not interested in leasing us any land connected to the dump, and is not interested in leasing us really any land, period. And then the council helped amend the lease, which is now much shorter. I want to speak to wildlife concerns. We hear you, and we understand. In-vessel composting systems, imagine that this 5-foot stand is made of steel and it locks, right? I have had the opportunity to be a backcountry wilderness guide here in Alaska for over 10 years. My job literally has been to keep people safe while cooking extravagant meals in the backcountry while traveling with food. I understand what it means to keep people safe in the backcountry when it comes to bears. And I do that not only for my guests, but also for the sake of the bears, which is another reason why I think we all love to live here in Alaska. So we take these wildlife concerns incredibly seriously. I also think it's really important to state that this is not an original idea. There are a lot of cities all over coastal Alaska that are composting quite successfully. We developed our program with the help of Juneau Compost, who has tons of businesses, lots of residents who are all getting behind this composting program that has diverted over 500,000 pounds of food scraps in Juneau. So this can be done safely, this can be done purposely, and I think that we're the people to do it. Here at City Council, have you had a lot of people knocking down your door trying to start a citywide composting program? No, because it's kind of a thankless job. I run 2 successful tourism businesses. I don't need to be up here right now talking about this. I can continue to go guide kayaking trips, spend time with my family, and continue to enjoy my time here. But I'm here because I want Seward to be a place where I want to live. Food security is a major concern for us here in Seward, which is why we started the Seward Farmers Market, which is why we're here talking about composting. We live in a food desert. We don't have the ability to have soil in order to grow the vegetables that we need to feed our families, and that is a human right. And that's something that us at the Seward Wilderness Collective are putting on our backs while we are running tons and tons of trips and being super busy, because it matters to us, because we want to do something. I hear you. I understand wildlife concerns. I understand that people don't want it in their backyard, and I get it. But we're tired of getting kicked down the road We're also tired of all the time and energy we've put into this project, and we're excited to see it move forward. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next signed in is Lori Landstrom.
Hi, Lori Landstrom. I live outside the city limits, but I work inside the city limits. Last meeting when this was talked about, you heard me speak as a personal gardener and also as the chair of Sustainable Seward. Tonight I'm still wearing both hats. I am fully in support of this resolution. I, as I said, am a gardener, and soil is very hard to come by in Seward. We have to import or basically make all of ours. I don't know how many of you are gardeners, but I get a lot of joy and peace of mind growing my own and tending my own garden. It's maybe a cheaper form of therapy, but you heard Trent talk about the fact that the borough is not interested in leasing them any land, and that's very unfortunate because I think the transfer site would be a great place, but the solid waste director is not interested in that at this time. You also heard Trent and Seward Wilderness Collective talk about the in-vessel systems. I invite you to look at those online and see. Haynes has been using them. As Trent also said, this is not an original idea. There are lots of places in Alaska that are successfully doing it. I successfully compost in my backyard. I believe I was the person that Sarah referenced. Yes, I've had brown bears in my backyard next to my compost containers, and because they're curious, they batted the lid, but they never stuck their paws inside to even touch any of my compost. And I don't have sealed containers. Do I have bears in my backyard frequently? Sometimes, but I also am adjacent to Bear Creek. And we all know what swims up Bear Creek all summer long. So, and there are plenty of kids in the Bear Creek subdivision, plenty of kids swimming at the end of the cul-de-sac on Bear Lake Road. So, I think improving the number of bear-proof trash cans and having security electric fences around backyard chicken coops will go a lot further to protect children in any neighborhood than having a commercial in-vessel compost will, be jeopardizing the children. So I encourage you to pass this resolution, to give it a try. I feel like Seward Wilderness Collective has done their homework. They did what you asked them to do at the last meeting, so thank you.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next signed in is Casey Warner.
Hi, Casey Warner, inside city limits, also a Forest Acres resident and mother of 2. I am in support of the Maple Street location for the composting facility. I do like the revision to the lease that does shorten the amount of time that they will be leasing the property, which is in alignment with the pilot proposal. I don't think it's gonna jeopardize my home or my children's safety any more than the dump road does or my neighbor's trash can that is constantly overflowing. So I'm in support of it. I hope that the city gives the Wilderness Collective an opportunity to do the pilot project and see where they can move forward from there. Thank you.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Next signed in is Jared Groom.
Hello, everybody. Jared Groom, I live inside city limits. Pretty sure everyone got their points across pretty well, but some of the points are, what are you gonna do? There's kids everywhere, right? I get it, wilderness and everything else. But the fact that no one knew about this at all until I posted on Facebook, and then everyone took off. No one knew. I signed up for conditional use permit, and that was 2 years ago. And you guys were shoving it through, late night meetings. How does it, no one was notified at all about any of this. So that's why I was upset. And I just want to know what we can do about it. Is it a service, posted meetings? Is it a letter in the mail? Something. Is there something like that we can do?
So I'll just let you know, so we can't respond to you during your
Oh.
public comments, but when we come back,
I
so,
thought I was brilliant.
yeah, no, sorry about that. But when it comes back to us, we can,
That was basically it.
Thank
They
you.
covered all the animal stuff and everything else, but it was, no one was notified about this at all.
okay, thank
That's
you.
why.
Sorry, didn't pick up on that.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, next sign in is Bethany Green.
Hello, my name is Bethany Broom. I live inside city limits, also in Forest Acres. My husband and I own a home at 2604 Diamond. We also own a shop space at 2607 Diamond, and I'm the executive of the estate at 2606 Maple. Currently, I believe that there wasn't enough research as to keeping wildlife out of it. We have at least 30 kids in our neighborhood that I know of, mostly ranging between 0 and 10 years old at this point. I reached out and spoke to Alaska Waste in Anchorage because they currently have a compost scenario, and they agreed that it has been an attractor of extra wildlife, and it concerns me. I don't want to worry about my 2- and 5-year-old in my front yard any more than I currently do. I would invite Mr. Gold and the Wilderness Collective to try to seek out a different location. I know he owns a home here in town and has 2 vacant lots directly next to it. So maybe he could apply for a conditional use permit and put it right next to his home. He seems to think that it's not going to draw extra things, and I would beg to differ at this point. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else signed in?
And last signed in is Steve Lemming.
Finally. I got the right one.
Steve Lemming, I live in the city limits, and, yeah, I'm against this. It's pretty obvious, the reasons I'm against it. I mean, it's just, it don't make a lot of sense where it's located. The project is a good project, I agree with you, it is. And I think everybody here agrees that it's well worth it to pursue something like this. Just don't put it in our backyard, that's all, if you don't mind. You can. And what I'd like to bring up is that a couple little facts. A bear's nose is 2,000 times stronger than a human's sense of smell. It can smell stuff from 20 miles away. Granted, the composting station probably don't smell to us, but it does to a bear. And it will draw bears into the area. I've got a lot right across from where you want to put this thing. And personally, I don't have any kids running around there, so I have no, anything gonna bother me. I know how to deal with bears, but it may not be the thing that they want to see, but I know how to deal with bears. Has anybody contacted any of these other cities to find out where these facilities are located? Are they within the city limits? Are they in neighborhoods? Does anybody know anything about these other composting stations?
We'll have to answer your questions.
Huh?
We really shouldn't respond during your public testimony time. But
Okay.
during discussion time, people can choose to talk to that.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm not all that gifted at this kind of stuff, so
No,
I
sorry.
apologize. But anyways, the other thing is, you're talking about one composting station at this point. If you take the cubic feet of that composting station, it's 56 cubic feet. There's about 25 restaurants in town here, if you count a few of the lunch wagons around town. Each one of them filled a 5-gallon bucket in a day
in a week's time, man, you're talking a lot of compost, a lot of raw material that's not gonna fit into that bin. It just won't do it. So where are you gonna put it? Is it all gonna be stacked in buckets all around the area there, waiting to be composted? How long does it take to compost? Does it take a week? Does it take a month? We don't know. Do you guys know? You do? Okay. Well, it's fine. This citizen comment again, right? Yeah, okay. Anyways, I'm assuming it takes more than a week's time, or at least a week's time, when you start adding up Abtech, the prison, Safeway, all these places that have all kinds of stuff that they'd like to get rid of. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and fill this composting bin, you know, but you're gonna fill it 100 times in a short amount of time. And then you start adding up the residences all around town, and everybody sets a 5-gallon bucket out on the curb for a route for the bears to go down, up and down through town and swap buckets around town. You're gonna have a mess, folks. You really are. A little more thought needs to go into this thing, and I really think that the main number one thing is get it out of town, get it out into a safe area. Don't try to cram this down our throats. One other thing I would like to mention, this contract for $1 a month on this thing, does it have any stipulation in there in regards to anything else going on that piece of property? That's pretty cheap rent. I think a lot of us would like to rent from the city for $1 a piece, for $1 a month, you know, for property. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it or that it's not a good idea. I'm saying, can they take and put whatever they want on that lot? Is that stipulated in the contract? Can they put vans? Can they put a travel trailer there? Rent it out to their employees or whatever? Thanks for hearing.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone not signed in wishing to speak? You can still speak that you're not signed in. Oh, I know you worked on the wrong one. Okay, yep.
Yeah, no kidding. My name is Susie Erbach, and I live within the city limits. Mayor, council members, and administration, I speak to you as a Forest Acres homeowner and as a grandma of young grandchildren. I'd like to address the Seward Wilderness Collective's composting project they'd like to implement. I think this is a wonderful addition to our community, and I applaud the organization for bringing it forward. My concern, as everybody else's, is the location. I was born and raised and have lived most of my adult life in Seward. I have lived in my current home, which is a block away from the proposed project, in Forest Acres for 34 years. As you can imagine, I have seen a lot of changes over the years. The Levee Road, Digraff Road, has brought both positives and negatives. One of the most positive things it has done is moved most of the heavy commercial traffic, as well as most of the traffic going to the dump and recycling center off our neighborhood streets. But the misnomer is that the Levee Road is out in the boonies, which in fact there's a large, vibrant neighborhood very close by. Before the waste transfer facility was built to haul all of our trash over to the other side of the Kenai Peninsula, there were large pits where heavy equipment would bury our garbage. It used to attract a lot of bears. In fact, we used to drive our visiting family and friends out to the area to watch the bears. The bears weren't just in the pits, they were along the road leading to the dump. This is very close to Maple Street. We also had bears in our yards on a regular basis. I'm afraid with the compost project proposed site being so close to our homes, we'll have a repeat of this problem. We have a lovely family neighborhood. Parents can feel safe with their children playing in their yards, riding their bikes, as well as having their family pets outside as well. In closing, I'm in support of the composting project, but I urge you to move it to a more appropriate site away from our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak? Thank you. It's all your email. All you, Becky, thank you.
Hi, thank you. This is Becky from inside the city limits, not too far from the proposed composting area. I have a few questions, and I think it might be better, a good idea, if somebody from the city of Seward called, somebody from city council called the Kenai Peninsula Borough to find out why that they wouldn't let it be on Kenai Peninsula Borough property. What the reasons are, or maybe encourage them to. If they would, maybe for a fee or closer to the dump, but find out why they turned it down, or, yeah, that would be good. Also, during this one, it wasn't so bad, but the last one, it was brought up again and again and again, how expensive gardening is in Seward. Well, Metco sells topsoil pretty cheap, and I sell everything that goes with it. So does the Fish House, and so does Three Bears. So there is places to buy in town. Yes, it is expensive, but we're doing what we can. And I also know a lot of people that are composting, but they're composting a really small scale, like a little worm farm in their garage, and nobody knows, and they use like their coffee grounds and maybe eggshells and leaves, or things that aren't food. And so my concern is that all the restaurants dumping to this in a neighborhood with the 5-gallon bucket. That's a really bad idea. And the 5-gallon buckets. Linda DeMott asked me to speak for her too. She can't make it here. And, yeah, so Metco sells topsoil. Yeah, nothing's been mentioned about a fence or electrical fence, or how much it's going to cost or where the money's coming from. We don't even know if this is. Those units that I've checked out, I was trying to get a grant so you could get them cheap, like the garbage-proof garbage cans, which, by the way, if you call the number on your garbage bill, if you don't already have one, they'll give you one, or they run it for something stupid like $2 a month. So the price is also, I'm not happy with that. And it's just down the street from a 40-unit housing where they want to put in that. So how many housing units could they put on that property? Maybe move it, I don't know whose property the shooting range is, but close to the shooting range, that might deter some of the bears. Just an idea. And that is it. And if anybody wants to know what not to put in a compost pile, to come in the store and I'll tell them. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi there, everyone. Good evening. My name is Annalise Kupfrian within city limits. I'm one of...
Can you repeat your name?
Annalise Kupfrian. Kupfrian. Kupfrian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am one of about a dozen people that just recently purchased property in the Forest Acres area. I'm 2607. Hi neighbors, we haven't met yet. Just met Steve the other day, walking his dog, and that's how I was informed about this proposed project, which totally all about composting. I think it's a great idea. I grew up in a family that's always been composting. Especially, the availability of usable soil for gardeners. I think it's a totally great idea. Didn't know this was going to be right in my backyard or just down the block. So to me, it doesn't make sense for this to be in a residential neighborhood. I know the folks that also purchased land in this area are excited to be in a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood with families and not composting material right in our backyard. But fully support it, just not this location. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw another hand of someone wanting to speak. Yes, sir.
Steve Seward, and I live in Forest Acres, around her and a few people. But just an example, I love my smoked fish. and it should go from the water into the smokehouse, quickly. And I've done it since I've been here a couple of times, and within a day or two, I walk the dump road with my dog, and I see bear tracks. As soon as I saw that, I shut it down. I don't do it no more, because you know what they're doing? They're just sniffing it out, is what they're doing, you know? And there's young kids. They run around on their bikes, run on their feet, you know? Got a dog with them? All you gotta do is trigger a bear, and they'll come for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Great, thank you, everyone. Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to council. Are there any questions for administration? Is there a discussion at this time? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. When I went through this, one of the things that did pop up to me going through the lease stuff was the signage that they were going to have to do identifying the leased property as a food bank, and I didn't quite understand that. So we looked it up, and it wouldn't necessarily qualify as a food bank. There are food banks that compost things to help people, but so that I'm not quite sure where that has come from. Another thing that was, we all got an email from Claire and Marcella, I believe. If I didn't pronounce it right, I apologize. And in that email, she stated that she had the chance to chat with a few council members about this, and I just didn't know if some of those council members might want to share that, since all of us were not in that chat. That's one thing. And maybe contacting the Kenai Peninsula Borough above the solid waste director might be a good idea, just to find out if they are actually more open than that individual might be. This would be a good thing. Pretty evident that most of the neighborhood doesn't want it located there. I think from our last meeting on this, a lot of us believe it's a good idea, a good project, but not a good location, and my mind has not changed on that. That's all I have right this second.
Thank you. Go ahead. So to Councilmember Calhoun's question, I was contacted. I was one of the council members contacted. And she called and asked if I had any questions. I said my same concern still remains the same of the location, and if there's a different location. I did mention that, without having an answer from the borough, I would either have to postpone or vote down this resolution. And it sounds like there is a answer from the borough. But I do still feel like if we as the city could write a letter to the borough as a project that we do support. I strongly support this project, but after what I've heard tonight, I can't support it in this location.
Councilmember Wells had his hand first, and then I'll come back to you. Councilmember Wells.
So I had the opportunity to call Claire today, because I had questions. And I'm not going to go over the questions that everybody else has already, mentioned, such as the safety and that. I had more business type questions. Because the city is leasing this land for $1. My question was, where's your business plan? How many jobs is this going to create? How much is the stuff going to cost? In here, under community-based support, it says participants pay a small monthly fee. Claire did say that that was changed to a donation. She told me that today. Then I had a question regarding the weekly participants leave their buckets on the curb. And I said, obviously that is a huge concern. Are these going to be bear-proof buckets? And she said, well, actually we've changed that. You will keep the buckets in your home until they're picked up. And if you miss the pickup, then you have the opportunity to take it out and drop it off yourself. So I wanted to address the bucket issue, so we don't have to think about the buckets being on the street corner, because they're going to be in your house. That way they don't have to be bear-proof. But I shared with her that Kellyanne at the Chamber is doing a great job on helping people get grants and write business plans, and that I'm 100% for this type of project, but without a clear business plan, goals, how's it really, other than we're gonna pick up people's compost. If we are going to lease land for $1, I wanna know, other than the composting, how many jobs are gonna create, how much more disposable income is it gonna create for our community, other than just the composting. So I'm gonna suggest that we vote this down until we have a more detailed plan.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Well, I don't have a lot to add to that, I guess, but I was contacted by Claire also, and it's highly appropriate, I think, for people to call us and discuss things. I don't think, it wasn't a big group discussion, but it was the same questions, and my whole thing was, and I was, I think, the first to suggest putting it out at the dump when we had the previous meeting, one of us was anyway, and it's the location, that's the biggest problem. I think composting is valuable, but I still feel that the borough somehow would be able to provide some land out there somewhere for this, and if not the university, now that's a possibility too. So I can't support it in the neighborhood, and that's the big no for me, and especially hearing from the neighbors. I also, it concerns me that people weren't aware of this, and I'm hoping that we'll do a better job of informing people about public hearings. Maybe expand the distance out, or there should be a way of, making sure that people are informed. When we're up here, we see this all the time, we know about it, and sometimes lose track of that people go about their lives and aren't really watching the city's website all the time. But in any event, my voting no on this has nothing to do with being anti-compost, but just the concerns that everyone has expressed and the location.
Further comments? I might just say for the public that wants to stay in tune for a lot of the issues, definitely send the clerk an email, clerk@cityofseward.net, and there is an email that goes out weekly. It's also published in the paper. But again, you don't know what you don't know to go look for something. So those emails are very helpful. And again, it's posted around town, but again, if you don't know it affects you, you don't go and look for it. But the email I find is the most helpful, and you can just scan that once a week and see if there's anything that, pertains to your interest. So we can connect that up later also. But I think we always need to think about how we can do a better job getting the public information out there. So we can continue to work on that. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am?
I'm not sure exactly how the vote will go, but I don't know if now is the time or in citizens' comments to ask administration to reach out. And I would, as council, support a letter to both UAF and the borough. As a council, to just ask, I don't know if it can just come from administration or.
Are you wanting a letter to ask, or are you wanting to show a letter of support? Because I don't think we need to add, I don't know that, okay, a letter of support.
Of
I
the
can agree.
project, yes. Is there any objection? I think that administration, do you?
No.
So is that enough clarity that maybe we can work on a letter of support? Councilmember Wells?
Again, a letter of support of leasing city land for $1 without any...
No.
Okay,
so
sorry, I misunderstood.
So, Councilmember Cascarni, maybe you can expand on what?
Yes, I would ask administration to write both UAF and the borough a letter of support of a composting project to be located closer to the dump where all of the waste is already located.
Thank you, sorry. Missed that part.
That's good, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, administration, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-069. Calhoun?
No.
Casagrande?
No.
Wells?
No.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
No.
Osinga?
No.
Mayor Terry?
No.
That resolution has failed.
Thank you. Ordinances for introduction was on consent agenda, new resolutions were on consent agenda. In your packet on page 271, we have some further explanation from Hyper, which has been including updated information in our packets, which has been very helpful. If there's any comments or questions regarding that. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. There's no sign-in for this comment period. Time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone that would like to speak under citizen comments? And this is on anything. Any takers? Okay. Hearing and seeing none. Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start with administration.
I would just say to Mr. Groom as he walks out that definitely wrote down tonight, getting more and better information out to the public is always a good thing, and we know that we need to do more and better on communications because we want folks to be aware of what's going on. We've got a lot going on in this town, and that's really, really good, and we're trying to make it a better community, and the more engagement we can have, the better, so.
Usually you
Appreciate
see
your
a
comment.
placard or something saying something's gonna plan on happening here, and that's what we're expecting.
So definitely that was one of the items that I wrote down, and I know Jody wrote it down, and we
Thank you so much.
are forming like an internal working group on communications. We've been pretty all-consumed with the landslide lately, but we definitely acknowledge that we want to get more information out to the public, so thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Wells?
Yeah, so I really appreciate all the emails from the public and all the administration. So I try really hard to call everybody and do some research on this stuff, and every person with our administration or the not-for-profits has always been willing to answer and take the calls. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate that. And again, how much I appreciate the public input. I know we get a lot of emails to City Council. I don't want anybody to think because I'm not replying to your email that I'm not reading it and that I'm not paying attention. It's just, we know that we're going to talk about it here, and I really do appreciate the emails. I just don't want anybody to think that we're not paying attention, so thank you all.
Thank you. Councilmember?
Yeah, just thanks to everybody in their involvement. The public process is always a good thing, whether it goes the way we want it to or not sometimes. That's what makes us different than a lot of places, so appreciate all the public's involvement in all the stuff that's going on. A couple of things, just thanks to Alan and Tammy, to AJ and to Scott for their actions in that accident, and not to overly tout anything, but they are, Alan and Scott are veterans, and all four of them are members of the American Legion. So that's a nice thing to see. Thanks to the electric department, and I apologize that I left the names of the two guys that came and worked on the power issue on the corner of 5th and Jefferson, but they saved some power outages happening over there on Friday night, and probably saved the replacement of a new transformer with a quick response late in the evening. So thanks to those guys doing a great job. Have seen the work on the animal shelter. It's come along. That's going to be great to see, so that some of the folks don't have to continue to hear the dogs barking sometimes. And not complaining, but you do hear it in a lot of places. Do feel for the animals. And last but not least, Tuesday is Flag Day. So everybody remember that. That is our greatest flag. And there will be a flag retirement ceremony at the American Legion about 6:30 that evening, if anybody wants to come and see how that works. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Cascarita?
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that showed up tonight and gave public comment. I know it's not always easy. I really appreciated having the little people here. I know a lot of times it's hard for parents to come, and
You can have them anytime.
it's really nice to hear the voices and know that we're all community and everybody is always welcome. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Demas?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Councilmember Osenka?
Just wanted to mention that I'm pretty grateful that we have some some great people, the first responders to that accident. I'm pretty grateful for their actions, and I think that's one of those things that pretty much anywhere you go, there'll be people like that. I'm just really proud that we have that kind of person, people here. Great job, Seward wrestlers. State is pretty phenomenal. Just tell everyone to have a safe and happy solstice weekend.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thanks. Congratulations to the wrestlers. Wrestling actually, I think, started in Seward High School with Dan Seavey when or in that time frame when I was there in high school, and my brother was a wrestler at the time, and wrestling is close to my heart, so congratulations to them. The solstice is the 21st, and Lee Pileski and I will be leading our annual cemetery tour that night on the 21st at 10:30. It's about pioneers this year, and it should be a good time at 10:30 on the 21st. And I also want to give a shout out, although I know she's not listening, but on the 21st, my mom will be celebrating her 92nd birthday.
Excellent.
And she was born here, and she's lived here her entire life. I think she's about the oldest that was born here that's still here, and I don't think she'd understand much what I'm saying. But in the past, we've been doing this cemetery tour since I came back 15 years ago, and I would take my mom to the cemetery on her birthday every year, and we'd sing happy birthday to her at the cemetery. And, her grandparents and I've got grandparents and aunts and uncles, my dad, there's a whole lot of my family out there, which, but we've got to remember the history we have in Seward, and it's just important, so. And be safe out there. There's a lot of drivers here that don't really understand small towns and stop signs, I think. So, and also bicycles that come just darting out at you. So just be cautious and slow, I think is a good advice right now.
Thank you, very good. I just want to make the comment that our airport is one of the items that makes our community a vibrant, growing community. It not only feeds into our economics, the military strategicness of the city, but also the safety of our citizens. So we just want the state to do that project correctly the first time so that it feeds into our community rather than works against it. So I want to encourage that project moving forward, but being done correctly. I am proudly flying the flag on our house for Flag Day, and it's also my mother's birthday, so it's a good reminder. So thank you to the American Legion for always making sure that those celebrations are highlighted. I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in our community. And then finally, a week from today is Juneteenth. The city doesn't celebrate that holiday. It's not necessarily a city holiday for employees, but just reminding the community that Juneteenth is June 19th. It's celebrated this year on the 20th, and that's the day recognizing the last calendar day of slavery in our nation. So Texas was the last state to actually follow the ceasing of slavery after the Civil War, and that's why we celebrate that as a nation, which I think we can all get behind. Recognizing that as an important part of our history. So with that, I will close the meeting.